This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Hello, everybody.
You know, periodically during my career, I've been opposed to the conventional wisdom and pushed what I thought was the truth that was contrary to what everybody else was saying. A good example of that was in the last election when I was saying that Trump would win by a lot, he'd win the popular vote, he'd win all the swing states, and everybody else was saying that wasn't true.
Well, everyone but me.
Yeah, but you get biased because I talk too much to you. And it's very hard to stand against the conventional wisdom because everybody else says something.
Yeah.
Well, right now, the conventional wisdom is saying that the economy is vulnerable, fragile, that the big, beautiful bill we'll call BBB is
Big badass bill
is going to cause a big expansion in the national debt and a big expansion in our deficit. And none of that is true. All of that is false. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I feel like I'm standing in the path of a hurricane. Let's have the song from Chicago that explains what's really happening.
Love Chicago.
So the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta released, while last week everybody was focusing on Elon Musk's fight with Donald Trump and this bromance and this breakup, and a lot of times reporters would ask me and I would say, look, I'm not a marriage counselor.
Yeah, that was good yesterday. You said that.
But this was happening while some very important developments were taking place in the economy that were changing the entire perspective and chances of passage of the big, beautiful bill on which Donald Trump's presidency depends. Just spend a moment on backup for that. In 2016, after Trump was elected, there was a big meeting of his people. John McLaughlin was there and told to me about it. And we all got together and said, okay, guys, what should we do first? And some said reform or repeal Obamacare, and others said pass the tax cut. And the Obamacare people won. And that dominated the opening of the Trump presidency. And it didn't work because McCain frustrated it. And they didn't get around to passing the tax cuts until the very end of 2017. And by the time that finally happened, it was too close to the 18 election, the off-year election. And the Democrats gained 40 seats, and Trump lost control of Congress. Mm-hmm. So, and the entire trajectory of his administration was different. It led to his defeat, if you call it that, in 2020. And now we're facing a very similar situation where we have got to pass these tax cuts. Otherwise, the economy will be in the toilet in 2028, when we have to control Congress. And that's why I'm focusing heavily on the big BB, the big beautiful bill, and why that bill is so important. Now, the Federal Reserve Board of Bank of Atlanta released new gross domestic product projections on Monday, predicting a huge increase in economic expansion. Huge. The estimate for real GDP growth, seasonally adjusted annual rate, in the second quarter of 25, the one we're in right now, which will end at the end of June, is 4.6%.
That's amazing.
Oh my God, you don't hear a 4 or 5 in these numbers ever. The average is about 2.1, and you celebrate when it's 2.4. You cry when it's 1.7. This is 4.6. Unbelievable. Now, of course, in the first quarter, it dropped by 0.5 point, but that was just because all the foreign countries were shipping their imports to the United States before the tariffs took effect.
Right.
So that lowered it. But now is the first time you have a real reading of the Trump economy, and it's 4.6 freaking percent. That is incredible. And the second quarter, real personal consumption expenditures growth and real gross domestic investment growth increased from 3.3% to 4.0, and from minus 1.4 to plus half of 1. Unbelievable numbers. Capital investment just jumps from 5.1 to 8.8, a massive spike in business confidence. Consumer spending is up from 3.8 to 4.6. On top of that, the Fed's preferred PCE, inflation price indicator, has now slipped to 2.1, nearly hitting the historic 2.0% goal, which they've had for about 5 years now, and they've never hit. They've always come in higher than that, and they always say, oh God, well, we want to get it back to 2.0, but it's never been. And now it is. In the middle of these good economic news, inflation is gone, 2%. And in May, the S&P 500 beat its best monthly performance since 1990. That's not recession. That's the beginning of a boom. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett projects 3% economic growth. Well, 3% economic growth solves all the problems in the BBB. There's no deficit in the BBB. It doesn't increase the national debt at all. In fact, it decreases it. So let's assume that the official White House budget is going to project at least 2.7% growth, which is the low end of what Trump is carefully setting up. Even at that lower pace, a big improvement over Biden and Obama, the budget deficits projected by the big, beautiful bill's critics will turn into a budget surplus. Surplus! Somewhere between 1 and 2 trillion, completely eliminating the deficit and beginning to pay down the national debt. By the way, Abe Lincoln, when he was president, or before he was president, when he was a lawyer, was broke and he would not be able to pay his bills. And he called the debt that he owed the national debt. He kept saying, I'm going to cut the national debt.
Didn't he have a problem paying for the hotel room after he was president?
Yeah.
He went to the hotel room and...
Oh, that is such a hysterical story. If you go to the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C., right across the street from the White House, they have a room dedicated to Abraham Lincoln. And what happened
You got to pay it forward, though.
What happened was that when he was elected president and had to be sworn in Washington, he had to take the train from Springfield, Illinois, where Lincoln lived, to Washington to get sworn in. And en route, the FBI, or whoever it was, found that there was a plot to assassinate him in Baltimore. So the train skipped Baltimore and came to Washington at a time nobody expected it, several days early. And Lincoln checked into the Willard Hotel because the White House was still occupied by his predecessor, James Buchanan. Mm-hmm. And then they asked for payment. He said, I don't have any money with me. Days before credit cards. So the Willard Hotel said, okay, sir, we'll give you credit. And he said, I promise right after I'm inaugurated as president and they pay me, I'll come back and pay the bill. So the IOU is in the Willard room. In the room at that hotel. You can actually see it. And
Did
then
they actually take his money, like when he came up with $1 or $5? Whatever?
And
really?
then,
they didn't say, Mr. President,
no,
don't worry about
they
it.
did not.
You get a pass.
They did not.
Really?
A week after a day after he was sworn in, he came back to the Willard and he paid his bill in full, in cash.
And they took the president's money.
And they did. And there's a receipt to prove it.
That's so great.
And it is so. And there's when Lincoln stayed there without paying, he had a big dinner for the Republicans and everything to celebrate his arrival. And the menu for the dinner and the check is itemized in the Willard room. You see how much he spent on liquids and meal and all that. Comes to a couple of $100, and back then that
Can't
was
believe
a
they
huge
charged
sum.
him. He took his money.
But you can actually look at that. It's worth going to the Willard Hotel.
I'm just curious now because you kind of brought it up. I think, and I don't know this to be, that the Secret Service started under Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if they were called Secret Service, but
no, it started. I don't know, but I think it started under,
right
after James Garfield was shot.
Okay.
Maybe William McKinley, but I think it was after Garfield.
I'll look
was shot.
into it. We'll find out.
So anyway, go back to the current situation. Even at the lower pace of growth, which is a big improvement over Obama and Biden, lower estimate. The budget deficits projected under the One Big Beautiful Bill's critics will turn into a budget surplus, somewhere between $1 and $2 trillion, completely eliminating the deficit and beginning to pay down the debt. The soaring deficit numbers depend on the Congressional Budget Office's partisan analysis, which as always asserts that tax cuts will not create much economic growth, on which higher tax revenues will be collected. Yet this has always proved wrong. In fact, in the 1990s budget, the CBO promised us that this would balloon the deficit, but it actually produced a budget surplus. And same was true of the Trump tax cuts in 2017. So what's in the big, beautiful bill? The growth we're already seeing is going to be hit with a dose of gasoline by Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. Of course, it isn't perfect, duh. It's the best we could get with a razor-thin majority in the House of 215 to 214. But it's good, and good is good enough. As is, the bill delivers almost $1.7 trillion in real spending cuts. Real spending cuts, not BS. The largest such package in American history. That's not nothing. $1.7 trillion. But it's also not the central purpose of the bill. The bill is about economic growth. For a host of reasons, both procedural and political, the bigger cuts come separately. So what's actually in the BBB? We'll talk about that when we come back from a break.
Beautiful.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
This episode is brought to you by Cadillac. Cadillac certified service technicians are factory trained to fit your vehicle with the tires specifically developed for it. And with our tire price match guarantee, you get the best fit for the best deal. Let us do the work. Available on select eligible tire brands at participating dealers only. Offer ends 12/31/2025. Terms apply. See dealer for complete details. Visit Cadillac.com/service to learn more.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. So the point is that this bill not only reduces the spending by the government by close to $5 trillion, never happened before, but it also incentivizes growth in an incredible way. One of the big things here is expensing tax expenditures. In other words, R&D. If you are a businessman and you want to buy a new computer or new equipment or new machinery, usually you have to pay taxes on the money that you use to buy it. But the law says that over time that equipment deteriorates or depreciates, and you can take a certain portion of the value of it every year and offset your taxes with it. So if, for example, you're spending $1,000 on the equipment, and it gives you a 10-year period, you can take $100 each year and reduce your income tax payments by that much. But this bill permits immediate expensing. You can take all 10 years right away, which incentivizes businesses to acquire new equipment, make new investment, and it means they can recoup the cost of the investment much, much more quickly. And that deal of expensing R&D is crucial to the economy. And then the other thing it does is it sets up these tax cuts as permanent. When they were passed in 2017, they were billed as only temporary. And that's because they needed to pass, and to do that, they had to get through that horrible Congressional Budget Office. And to do that, they had to persuade the guys at CBO, the bean counters, that this was only temporary. And this will make it permanent. And that's really important because it means that businesses can count on it, and they can know that they're going to be, they're not going to have to see it repealed and have the ground rules change over them in mid-course. So the provisions of this BBB are incredible. And then, of course, there's the other stuff. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security payments, no deduction for car loans on cars produced in America. Stuff that's really, really important and will have huge impact on the lives of individual people. So again, standing against this conventional wisdom sometimes is really tough. And here the conventional wisdom has been telling us that this bill is not having much of an effect. It's actually a compromise bill. Elon Musk called it an abomination because we eliminated the tax credits for his EVs. And it's subject to a lot of attacks and abuse. And it's got very little margin in the Senate, passed by one vote in the House. And yet it is absolutely crucial. When you hear a Republican congressman or senator dump on this bill or say they have reservations about it, tell them to take a hike to the other end of the legislative chamber. Tell them to cross the aisle because they're acting like a Democrat. And
how about take a long walk on a short pier?
Yeah. And we have to realize that this bill is essential to Donald Trump and oppose anybody who stands in its way. Now, one of the things that they love to do, the opponents of this bill, is they love to depreciate or attack the Medicaid cuts. And they say this is cutting benefits to poor Americans. First of all, let me just be clear so everybody understands. Medicare and Medicaid are totally different. Medicare is not being cut at all, and that's the payments to the elderly and disabled. Medicaid is for poor people and nursing homes, and it's gone up incredibly. And the reason Medicaid has gone up so rapidly, it's gone up, I think, from $40 billion to $90 billion a year in the last 2 or 3 years, is that when Obama tried to pass universal health care coverage and failed, he passed instead a big expansion of the Medicaid program that took its place. And the expansion said to the states, normally we give you only 50% of the money you're spending. Now we'll give you 90%.
Wow.
And as a result, state after state increased their Medicaid spending. And then on top of that, you had the COVID pandemic. And the health officials of every state said, oh my God, we have got to sign everybody up on Medicaid right now because they're going to have to go to the hospital. They're going to need care. And this is an emergency. We got to supply it. And as a result of these two crises, the failure of the Obamacare bill to succeed anyway, and the problems with the problems with the current healthcare system, everybody looked to the Medicaid program, and it almost doubled in size. And when Trump says we've got to control Medicaid, he's not talking about cutting it. He's talking about restoring it to the pre-pandemic levels, saying, look, our panic to cover everybody isn't necessary, and it's over, and we can't afford this. And that's what he's pushing. Also bear in mind that 1.9 million people are receiving Medicare who are illegal immigrants. Cut
How
them
many?
off. 1.9 million, 2 million of them. Cut them off. And just not necessary to do that. And you also have big reductions in the cost of Medicaid because of the reductions in drug costs that are kicking in. Trump has proposed this huge thing of most favored nation, where drug companies can't charge the government a higher price than they charge, the lowest price they charge internationally. So Finland is getting a drug for $100, and in the U.S. it costs Medicaid $200. They have to cut it back to $100.
Well, first of all, as we're going to say even later, we spend all our money in research and development, and our prices have to be somewhat higher. And then all these other countries take our research and development and whatever we invent or do, and they could sell it cheap because they didn't spend billions of dollars.
Damn right. We'll talk about that later today.
Mm-hmm.
So these changes are the cuts in Medicaid are not cuts in Medicaid. They're cuts in benefits for illegal immigrants. Another big part of it is a work requirement to get Medicaid, just like I helped pass to get welfare when I worked for Clinton. And, you know, when that happened, a whole lot of people stopped taking welfare because they said, I don't want to have to work. So the welfare rolls dropped by about 1/3. Now, this is Medicaid, and you figure that welfare, which is actual cash maintenance, which you need every month, you don't drop out of the program, you take your lumps and you go to work. But Medicaid, if you're not sick and you're healthy, why the hell do you need Medicaid? It's just in the event you get sick, you want to be covered. So work requirements in Medicaid will drop a large number of people out of the program and basically cure the cuts the Congress are complaining about.
You actually talked to him about this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, several times, actually.
Pretty good, sure.
And Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, and a whole bunch of others are complaining about the Medicaid cuts. And it's just baloney.
Right.
The cuts in aid to illegal immigrants, and they're cuts that really aren't real cuts. So this bill is a wonderful, wonderful bill and deserves passage.
I thought it was a big, beautiful bill.
It is. The way that phrase originated was Trump was talking to a reporter, I forget who it was. And in the course of the conversation, he said, no, this is one big, beautiful bill. And
Trump said it or the guy said it?
Trump said it. And the reporter reported it, and Trump read it, and he liked it. So he said, from now on, let's refer to this as one big, beautiful
That's
bill.
how he got Make America Great Again. He was just talking about it, and then he just liked hearing it.
Right.
By the way, the Secret Service, just to go back to Lincoln, came on right after Lincoln was shot. The Secret Service came in like 1865.
Right.
The Pinkertons were the feds during the Lincoln administration. The Pinkertons. Thank you, Maddie. Maddie's the boy.
Oh, good.
He sends me all kinds of stuff.
I thought it was until later.
No.
Okay, while this is happening, job openings have increased, signaling recovery. Employment vacancies unexpectedly rose in April, reaffirming the health of the U.S. labor market. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Job Openings and Labor Turnover Summary, job openings climbed by 191,000 to 7.4 million, from upwardly revised 7.2 million in March. The consensus indicated a reading of 7.1 million, so the growth increased even more than expected. The largest increases in job vacancies were observed in arts, entertainment, and recreation, 43,000, mining and logging, 10,000, and overnight accommodations and food services, but not in state and local government. That was down by 51,000. So the private sector is booming. And over the last 12 months, job openings have declined by more than 200,000.
Now, I want to ask you a question right there. Is that because the jobs are being filled, or are we losing job offers?
No, they're being filled.
They're being filled, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
And the fact that job openings are down,
that's what I mean.
It shows that jobs are being created and they're looking for people. It also means that if you have a job, you feel free to quit because you know there's another one coming. So it's very important. Well, that's my speech about the big, beautiful
that was
bill.
Some speech, boy.
Yeah.
Now, China's easing on restrictions.
No, I'm sorry, one other thing I forgot to say.
One more thing.
A big question in the budget debate about the BBB is what's the deal with the tariffs that Trump is imposing? Is that going to generate a lot of revenue, or will it be bargained away by Trump, and will it not create a lot of revenue? And
Whoa. But if it's bargained away, he's bargaining somehow with something.
Yeah, but Trump says, no, I'm not. I'm going to keep this money. And the Congressional Budget Office, those partisan turds, finally agreed this week that, Trump's tariffs would generate revenue.
Oh, they finally said that?
Yeah, you know how many discussions I've had with Trump where I say you've got to get the CBO to score the trade stuff.
Right.
And he always says, yeah. And then at one point he said, I'll call right away. I'll get on it today. And he
said that at the Oval Office when we were there.
And he did. And and now the Fed, the CBO says that Trump's tariffs will generate $2.4 trillion in revenue to the government over the next 10 years. $2.4 trillion.
Hard to believe they said that.
And this means that all of this talk about how much cuts there'll be and what a burden this is on the working class are baloney. The fact is that the increased economic growth we talked about a minute ago and the tariff revenues will overwhelm the cuts we're talking about and create a hell of a budget surplus. And this bill will be remembered in history as the time that the United States stopped growing the national debt and started decreasing it and paying it off. It's unbelievable. And basically, just to recap, the tariffs are first a uniform 10% tariff on all countries. And we import $4 trillion a year from abroad. So
wait, he kept that 10%?
Yep.
All
countries.
Mm-hmm.
And that 10% will yield $400 billion. 10% of $4 trillion. And then in addition to the 10%, he's earmarked for China, Europe, Canada, and Mexico larger tariff increases that he's going to be negotiating. When you put all that together, the CBO says this is going to generate $2.4 trillion in extra revenues. So all these fiscal hawks, these Republicans who claim, oh, I worship at the altar of the balanced budget and I'm not letting the economy go crazy and the budget go insane, are just yesterday's news. They haven't read the fact that Trump has changed this all by his tariff increases, his economic growth, and, let me say, his land sales in Utah and Nevada, and his reduction in the cost of drugs with the most favored nation policy, which cuts government spending.
Well, they're still nervous about the tariffs. They still don't know if there's going to be this big, gigantic
It's
war.
because it's new.
That's right.
And they're just not used to it.
And they're not.
But the point is, Trump has always made clear that 10% tariff is not negotiable. And in all the trade deals he's done with countries, he's kept it in. He might really lower the tariffs on China, Europe, Mexico, and Canada, but he's not going to get rid of the 10% tariff. And this basically means that the rest of the world is paying off our debt, a debt we accumulated by running deficits to subsidize the rest of the world.
I mean, it's already working for China, for us with China. They're easing their export licenses right now, which we're going to talk about after we get back. And it's already working.
And last month, we generated $100 billion more in tariff revenues already. And that's going to go to $2.4 trillion over 10 years. When we get back, we'll talk about China and our relationship with them.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
What show is this, Dick Morris?
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Yeah, so China is easing on the restrictions. Already Trump's tariffs are doing something, right? China's granted temporary export licenses to rare earth suppliers of the top 3 automakers. As supply chain disruptions begin to surface from Beijing's export curbs on those materials. At least some of the licenses are valid for 6 months. It was not immediately clear what quantity or items are covered by the approval or whether the move signaled China is preparing to ease the rare earth licensing process, which industry groups say is cumbersome and has lightened up on rare earth and created a supply bottleneck. On Thursday, President Trump and Chinese President Xi had a lengthy phone call to iron out trade differences. Trump said in social media posts, there should be no longer any question respecting the complexity of rare earth products. Both sides said teams will meet again soon. China's decision in April to restrict exports of wide range of rare earth and related magnets has tripped up the supply chain for us. Automakers, aerospace manufacturers, semiconductor companies, and military contractors. So China's going to ease up on that, and that's got to happen.
Let me give some background on that. Rare earth minerals have been around for a long time, but their relevance only became important with the growth of electronics and IT.
Sure.
And the United States was the world's leader in in rare earth minerals.
Right.
Until the federal government stepped in.
Biden.
Not
or
Biden.
Obama.
No, this goes back to pre-Obama. And Obama, really. And what they did was totally insane. Rare earth minerals are largely found near deposits of radioactive uranium.
Right.
And the rare earths themselves are not radioactive, but they're found right next to the uranium. So the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, the folks who were letting Iran develop a bomb, intervened and said, we're going to regulate rare earth minerals, just like we regulate the mining of uranium. But the company said, what are you regulating us for? We're not radioactive. And they said, we're going to do it because it could affect the mining of uranium.
Proximity.
And when that happened, all of the rare earth mineral mines closed and moved to China. And the experts all moved to China, the guys who knew how to get the minerals. And China developed this huge industry solely because of the actions of American regulators.
You don't remember what administration?
It was Obama. And now Trump has reversed that, and we're expanding our rare earth mineral mining capacity. But China still has a huge advantage. So what China's done in the trade talks with Trump is Trump has said, look, I have all the leverage. I export to you. I buy from you twice as much as you buy from me. So don't screw around with tariffs. They'll kill you. And China came back and said, yeah, that's true. But we have the rare earth minerals. So we'll impose export controls on rare earth minerals until you drop your tariff demands. And that's where it stands now. And they have the U.S. over a barrel on this. Now, long term, what China has done to build up its rare earth mineral supply is it's lent money to countries throughout the world, particularly in Africa and Latin America. They're very poor and very corrupt.
Well, like a loan shark.
Yeah, exactly.
China.
And they've gone to countries like Peru and said, hey, guys, you really need a new port. And they said, well, we don't. We have Lima. And they said, well, we think you need a new port. Here's $1 trillion to build a new port. And Peru has said, oh, okay, great. And the president of Peru puts it in his bank account in Switzerland. And that's happened in a lot of different countries. And then when it comes to pay back the loan, they don't have any revenue because they didn't spend it. They stole it. And they can't pay it back. So China uses that to take a lien out on the rare earth minerals and say, okay, we now own the minerals. And you're giving us that in exchange for forgiveness on the loan. And what Trump is doing now is he's exploring other sources of rare earth minerals. Doug and I have been involved with some deals he may be cutting with African countries.
Yep.
We were in the Oval Office last week, and we met with the president about that.
With somebody with that.
And there's a real chance of a treaty with Ethiopia and with Cameroon to buy their rare earth minerals. Now they sell it all to China, and they're not happy with that, and they'd like to switch to America. And there are a bunch of other countries that are saying that, and that could erode China's power in this area. But it still exists, and that's what's going on in the trade.
We don't know where it's going yet, but it will.
So, Doug, you have other thoughts on drug pricing, I think.
Well, this is immigration from the terrorist countries.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, of course.
You want me to do the other one?
No, do immigration. Yeah.
So Trump announced a new visa ban, barring the issuance of most types of U.S. visa to nationals of 12 countries: Afghanistan, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Myanmar, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen, and barring the issuance of some types of U.S. visas to nationals of several other countries: Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Both measures go into effect Monday. So that's what he's doing to get these guys.
When Trump first took office in 2017, there was a big push for banning immigration from Africa, from terrorist-sponsoring countries. And basically the media said this is a ban on Muslims coming into the U.S. And the courts threw it out. And they said, you haven't researched enough. You don't have criteria that are valid. The criteria have a discrimination, and we're not going to let you do it.
Good.
So when Trump came back this time, he researched it carefully, and he amassed a lot of evidence about the reason for cutting off immigration from these countries: terrorism, gangs, drugs, all kinds of stuff. And he really built a case carefully. And now he's come back and imposed immigration controls on these countries. and the courts will uphold it because it's very justified now. And the risk of terrorism is going to drop dramatically. You remember how terrorists blew up or set fire to Notre Dame in Paris.
Oh, God.
The church. And you've seen horrible terrorist episodes throughout the world. Now it's not, and everybody said it's going to come to this country. And now Trump has really acted to stop that. And he did his homework this time, and the courts are going to approve it.
I can't understand how an American, on the left obviously, would say, "Oh, this is wrong. You shouldn't do this. It's offending Muslims." Are you crazy?
Well,
if we could stop one terrorist from killing someone or wrecking a building, I don't get. They have to live here too.
Damn right.
Yeah. So you want to talk about
go
Patel?
drug.
Cash Patel cleans up.
No, drug pricing.
Where are we on that? Which one is that, Dick?
Number 5.
Okay. Trump rips Europe over drugs. In his executive order released last month, Trump called out Europe for free riding on American medicines. This is what we were talking about before. Europe sets socialist price controls on imported American drugs. We do the research, and of course, and they get over on us not paying for that research and development. American patients were effectively subsidizing socialist healthcare systems in Germany and all parts of the European Union, said Trump. They were nasty, and I see that. European Union is in many ways nastier than China, and we've just started with them. They'll come down a lot. You watch. We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly. They'll sell us 13 million cars, and we sell them just about none. They sell us their agricultural products. We sell them virtually none. They don't take our products. That's pretty much it. They don't take our products. That gives us all the cars and very unfair. So they're going to have to pay more for health care. He's funny, isn't he? Forcing European countries to drop their pharmaceutical price controls through strong trade agreements will lower our trade deficit while keeping America ahead of China. In what industry does America currently dominate Europe and China? The development of life-saving cures for chronic diseases. America is undisputed the world champion in pharmaceutical innovation, a title that has saved millions of lives and driven the development of groundbreaking treatments.
Damn right.
How much do we spend on R&D?
Oh, my God, a huge amount. About a quarter of all drug revenues from sales goes to R&D.
Is that in the hundreds of millions?
Oh, billions. Yeah,
wow.
Hundreds of billions.
Wow.
Probably trillions. To understand the dominance of the U.S. in R&D of medical stuff, remember the COVID experience. When the COVID virus first became a pandemic, everybody said, oh, my God, we need a vaccine. We need a vaccine for this. And Europe set up a crash program to make the vaccine, and so did America. We made 3 of them, and we immunized the whole world. Europe still hasn't produced a vaccine. Their R&D is so backward, and that's true of all fields of medicine. So we're saving them from cancer and heart attacks and diabetes and a lot of illnesses. And they're discriminating against us, overcharging us for the meds and underpaying for themselves. So this is really going to set.
Well, that's going to bite him in the butt a little bit now with Trump. That's the way he is. So when we get back, maybe we'll talk about that. Patel cleaned up the
Patel thing.
Yeah, good. Yeah. All right, when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, with Trump pushing America first and coming aggressive with Europe on tariffs, the question arose, what would Europe do? Because Europe is a democracy now. And the left has said Europe will retaliate and become anti-American. Well, they had a very important election in Poland, And I'm a little biased here because the party that won, the Conservatives, are a party I worked for. But now Polish President Karol Nawrocki on Tuesday shared a post from President Trump through his social media in which Trump mentioned Newsmax coverage and commented on the election. Nawrocki said, "Thank you, Mr. President. Strong alliance with the U.S., as well as partnership based on close cooperation on my priorities." And Trump wrote back, "Trump ally wins in Poland, shocking all in Europe.
Good.
Newsmax, congratulations. Poland, you picked a winner." And Nawrocki, sharing the post on X, wrote, "Thank you, Mr. President. Strong alliance with the U.S., as well as partnership based on close cooperation on my top priorities." The new Polish president's post has been seen by 800,000 people. Nawrocki, the new president of Poland, was elected with a vote signaling a resurgence of conservatism in Europe. He's set to take office on August 6th and is expecting to align his administration in the Central European nation of 38 million people closely with Trump's White House. I have a very funny story about that. My client in Poland was a guy named Kuczynski, and he was the president of Poland. God knows how you spell it. And Kuczynski flew to Germany for an event with Chancellor Merkel. And in the event, after the event, Chancellor Merkel, in public, said to Kuczynski, "You know, Mr. President, Germany has fewer representatives in the European Parliament than Poland does, even though we have twice or three times as large a population. Don't you think we should make some adjustment for that?" And he was shocked and angry that Merkel mousetrapped him and did that in public. So he came back and he said, "How about if you give us credit for the Poles killed in World War II?"
Oh, my God.
That was the first time anybody had ever really challenged Merkel on Germany's record in World War II and shut her up rather quickly.
I would say so.
Now,
we're going to go to Patel. Dick, we're going to...
Just 1 minute.
Okay.
Poland and Hungary have basically led the revolt against the EU, which has tried to impose socialist policies and anti-American policies. And now Poland in this election reaffirmed that it's going to continue on that path. And that's a big boost for Trump. Okay.
So Kash Patel, this guy's great. He's going to clean up the FBI. Check it out. With polygraph tests for the rats, FBI Director Kash Patel has begun implementing sweeping changes at the Bureau, fulfilling campaign promises to eliminate what he describes as compromised law enforcement agency. He's even using polygraph tests to find leakers, rats, as I call them, which has left left-sided agents, uneased, and many liberal-leaning outlets like the New York Times on edge. Patel has orchestrated significant personal changes and operational reforms aimed at restoring public trust in the federal law enforcement agency since taking office. He declared that the FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to the people unless drastic measures are taken. In his book, Government Gangsters, what a great name for a book, isn't it? In his book, Government Gangsters, arguing that the top ranks of the Bureau should be eliminated to restore integrity to the organization. The scope of changes has created what sources have described to the Times as unprecedented upheaval within the agency's ranks. Agents throughout the organizations have expressed uncertainty about their job security. Oh, poor boys. As the new leadership team continues its systematic review of personnel and operations. Multiple agents have departed their roles while others have faced...
Don't you have your tape? Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Multiple agents have departed their roles while others have faced demotions or been placed on administrative leave as part of the organizational changes. Several senior officials have been removed from their positions across multiple field offices. A succession of top agents received ultimatums to either accept different assignments or get the hell out. I love it. I don't know if he said get the hell out. I said that. Patel has implemented mandatory polygraph for the rats, testing for employees as part of the efforts to identify and stop unauthorized information leaks to the news media, the rats. The program has expanded beyond traditional uses to encompass discussions about internal personnel decisions and administrative matters, creating what former agents describe as an atmosphere of heightened surveillance within the organization. Senior executives have been informed that stopping unauthorized disclosures has risen to become a top priority, even when such leaks do not involve active criminal cases or classified national security information. The polygraph testing has occurred at what former officials characterize as a rapid rate amongst senior personnel. The director and I will have most of our incoming reform teams in place by next week. FBI Director Dan Bongino wrote on social media. He's great, Bongino.
He's great.
Go on.
Well, in the past, the polygraphs in the FBI have been used to try to make sure that sensitive information that could help potential defendants and criminals and impede the FBI investigations would not leak. But this is the first time that we're really getting at the heart of the left-wing bias of the FBI.
Is this against the law, what they're doing here?
Yes.
These guys?
Yes, it is. And we're finally getting at the bias that led to the Russia probe, where the FBI lied to its teeth. And Patel is really rooting them out.
And they can say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.
When we come back, we'll talk about the statement by Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden's former press secretary, that she's leaving the Democratic Party.
That's so funny. Such a
okay, bye-bye.
See you, bye-bye.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Oh, such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT.
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
All right, check this out, Dick. The former White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, I call her Karen John Peters, is leaving the Democratic Party and promoting a new book. Expect to offer insight into her time serving under Joe Biden.
Let's go to the song for a minute.
Oh, we got a song for that?
Yeah. Betrayal.
There's a song called Portrayal?
By Warren Zeiders. This is a song by Warren Zeiders.
It's pretty good. First of all, let me just say this. She left the Democratic Party because, number one, she wrote a book and she wants some conservative people to read it. So she's like, oh, I'm open-minded. I don't like those people anymore. Plus, she wants to get a job at, whatever, CNN or CNBC. That's what this is all about. She's just broad, whatever.
She also is, I think, worried about criminal liability.
What does that mean?
For censoring and obstructing justice by stopping the people from understanding Biden's deterioration. And I think she's very concerned about being criminally liable for doing that.
So anyway, she's independent, right? So with her upcoming book, vows to deliver a hard-hitting analysis of America's broken two-party system while urging readers to embrace life as independents. Yeah, okay. She indicates the left, the Democratic Party leaving the left, a decision she didn't take lightly after Biden dropped out of the presidential election and Trump returned to office. She takes us through the 3 weeks that led to Biden's abandoning his bid for the second term and the betrayal by the Democratic Party. It's so full of it, the betrayal by the Democratic Party that led to his decision, according to the publisher. Jean-Pierre is one of many associates who was close to the former president when whispers of his cognitive decline came to a head during the 24 debate, in which the Democrats struggle to make sense.
Yeah, and failed.
This is so full. She's so full of it. She just wants to sell this book. She never had any honor to anyone. The typical left. They have no honor anyway.
Let's go to Sandra in New Jersey.
Oh, hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi. I don't know if I should talk about what's going on in California or Elon Musk. I think California, because everybody talks about Musk. Right.
Also, Musk is going away. Nobody's talking about it anymore.
And the story's going to go away.
Getting worse. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I mean, look, I feel bad for him. He lost a lot. They both should be respectful to each other. And I know Donald Trump is respectful to him. But what I wanted to say was this song, "You Have the Whole World in Your Hand." You know that song?
Yeah.
I thought of that song because Trump has everything in his hands, and what's going on in California, they're all protesting against the taking away of the illegal immigrants. Tom Homan has his hands full. They're going to call the National Guards because these people are out of control, hurting the armed forces. I mean, this is really, really bad.
It really is. It's damn close to an insurrection. And the Democrats are killing themselves with this because the issue is not just immigration. It's not just deportation of people that are here illegally. It's deportation of criminals who committed crimes in the U.S. and we're trying to deport them. And the Democrats are protesting. And they've tried in court constantly, and now the courts are ruling against them on appeal. So they're trying to take matters into their own hands and terrorize ICE agents. And Trump is sending in the National Guard, which is terrific, but this really is a political development that will be very hard for the left to handle.
But once again, I have to say, they live here too, the people on the left. Why do they want criminals here, and what's the story? I can't process their mindset, their thought patterns. It's unbelievable. I don't get it. Why do they want the criminals here?
The Democrats want those votes.
Well, if they're dead in the street and they get firebombed or whatever's going to happen with these criminals being in the street, what good is the vote? This doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it.
Thanks for the call, Sandra.
It's got to just be they have an evil mindset and they don't care. They want some bad thing to happen. That's all I could think about.
The Supreme Court this week killed the special path to citizenships we award to Cubans.
I like Cubans.
Until Friday, Cuban immigrants have occupied a special place in immigration law. But now the Supreme Court is allowing Trump to deport Cubans, just like it allows deportation of Venezuelans, formerly covered by the parole program. And this is a program designed to stop the deportation of people who are subject to political persecution at home. And boy, the Cubans are subject to political persecution.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And Trump should not have gone along with this and should not have asked the Supreme Court to crack down on Cuban asylum claims because they're real. Just ask your vice president, just ask your Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, whose
Cuban
parents were persecuted by the Castro regime.
And Mercedes Schlapp.
The wife of the head of CPAC.
Yeah.
So what about motorbikes, Dud?
So this is unbelievable. It's funny. I've said this before, I think on the show also. I ride a motorcycle in the city. You know, we live in the city, right? And I ride all through the... nice. Nice. I want you to know that's actually me. I recorded that, I think, in Florida to use for one of our shots. So anyway, I ride a bike in the city all the time. No helmet. I'm a moron, but still, right? And I'm fine. I'm not a bit worried about anything. I get off my bike one day. I almost got run over by one of those electric bicycles. Oh, my God. I'm right through the city in a big Harley, and I'm going to get killed by a bicycle. Anyway, Adams wants it to be a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on those motorbikes. But here's the story with this. I'll read this, and then I'm going to give you my idea. Mayor Adams announced late Wednesday he will be instituting a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on the e-bike citywide amid growing concerns over safety on New York streets. I've heard over and over again from New Yorkers about how their safety and the safety of their children has been put at risk due to the speeding e-bikes and e-scooters, Adams said. So today our administration is saying enough is enough. We are implementing a new 15-mile-an-hour per hour speed limit for e-bikes and e-scooters that will make our streets safer. Multiple sources familiar with the matter have told the news that Adam has been planning an end-of-the-week announcement of the e-bike speed limit, engaging in multiple discussions on the topic. So this is what I want to say. For him to do this, then they would have to register the driver and the bikes for this to work. Because when they get a camera ticket, right, like we do,
Yeah.
it's not going to mean anything if they don't have a place to send the ticket. If the bike isn't registered with a plate on it.
Aren't you required to register bikes?
I don't know about the I'm not sure. I'll have to. And Maddie, check it out. I'm gonna have Maddie.
You probably are.
I've never seen a plate on that bike.
If anybody knows the answer, call in.
Maddie will know. But I've looked at the plates. I looked at the back of those bikes many times when I got a ticket for parking my motorcycle, and I saw the e-bikes there, and I did not see a plate. Now, I could be wrong about that. Yeah. So anyway, there's no way this will work unless there's a registration and a license for these things. Yeah, you don't, right, Lux? Lux is telling me right now you don't have to.
Well,
so
that's
this is
a great
not going
point,
to.
Doug.
So this is not going to work until the camera don't mean squat.
That's a great point.
Now I got a point right on the end of my nose.
We have a big election coming up in New Jersey in June, and Trump played a starring role in the race for governor.
This New Jersey, Chitterelli of New Jersey, thanks to his stronger than expected showing last November in a Democrat-led state. But his influence on Republican and Democratic primary set for Tuesday was impossible to miss this week. On Monday night, just hours before the start of early voting, Trump held a dial-in telephone rally for the candidate he endorsed last month. A Republican former Assemblyman, Jack Chitterelli, I don't know if it's Chitterelli. Sandra says Chitterelli, who is making his third run for governor. Chitterelli was at the front of 5 candidate GOP pack long before he earned Trump's backing. Still, if Chitterelli wins today's primary and beats the Democratic nominee in November, the president will rightly be able to claim some credit. Only New Jersey and Virginia are holding races for governor this year, and the contest will all offer an early gauge of voters' attitudes towards Trump 5 months into his second term as president. He seems to allude to the looming scorecard on the call, reminding listeners that the race was being watched actually all over the world. New Jersey's ready to pop out of that blue horror show. He's making it clear his ultimate goal, turning the blue state red.
Yeah. Jersey is the best chance we have for a pickup.
Why is that?
Well, it's become increasingly conservative. The Latino population there, like in New York and other places, is moving to the right. And people are getting experience. They're seeing the garbage, the crap that goes on in Democratic-led states.
Well, what about even in New York? You got, I don't know about Queens, I think is moving red, but you have Suffolk County.
Yeah, but New York, Biden carried it by 11 points. In New Jersey, he carried it by 5. So there's a real chance of winning in New Jersey. Now, Trump is replacing the Biden model of cooperation between America and the global tech industries. Biden's model was to cooperate with other countries in developing rules for the internet. The global digital order is being rapidly reshaped by the U.S. under Trump. What had previously been an uneasy but functioning framework of cooperation built on multilateral tech diplomacy, coordinated artificial intelligence safety efforts, and collective export controls is now unraveling. In its place, the United States is embracing a more unilateral and aggressive technology strategy, prioritizing technological dominance over multilateral cooperation. As the January announcement about the establishment of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology put it, it is a national security imperative for the United States to achieve and maintain unquestioned and unchallenged global technological dominance. The new doctrine is simple: America first in the digital form. And this will affect internet regulation, it will affect AI development, and all this stuff. And what it really is a shot across the bow to Europe, saying we will not let multilateral constraints stand in the way. The United States recognizes and gets it that internet and technological regulation is the key to global power.
What is multilateral constraints? I don't know what that is.
Well, for example, the internet is governed by an agreement of the various countries that use it.
Yeah.
And Trump is saying, no, we're going to do ourselves. We're going to figure this out for ourselves, and we're not going to be hampered by going slow with Europe.
Beautiful. All right. When we get back, what are we doing?
When we get back, we'll be talking about Trump killing the restrictions on Alaska drilling. It's time for your caribou story.
Oh, the moose.
Yeah.
Forget the moose.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. One of the big things that the left did was to basically shut down development of Alaska for oil and gas.
Like Anwar. You can't drill in Anwar, the caribou. You're going to kill them. You're not going to kill I said this, I'm repeating myself. Everyone knows the story. You're not going to kill a caribou. They're going to be grazing and talking. How you doing? What you do last night? And all the trucks are going to be coming in, and the big drill things, they're coming in. And they're not going to gun them down with bazookas and guns. The moose are going to say, the caribou, whatever the frick they are, moose, caribou, they're going to go, oh, look at this. These guys are coming in with the big trucks and drills. They're going to probably drill for oil. Let's go over there and eat. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to get mowed down.
They're going to send out for dinner.
Forget the moose, like an author.
So
Forget
listen, call in.
The call-in number.
Yeah.
1-800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. 9222. So let's do the story about Alaska.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm doing this because Dick can't say any of these words. I can't even. Let's see. How did we say? Ukqiavik, Alaska. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum delivered welcome news to a room full of Alaska natives on Sunday evening. The Trump administration will take actions to rescind a Biden-era climate rule that locked up millions of acres from future oil and gas development. Burgum made the unexpected announcement here we go again, Ukqiavik, Alaska, America's northmost community and home to here's another one, Inupiat people, flanked by Energy Secretary Chris Wright and EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, fellow members of Trump's National Energy Dominance Council. At Burgum's direction, the Interior Department will initiate a formal rulemaking process Monday morning to rescind the regulations. Ready?
It's important to understand that the United States oil production gets nothing from Alaska and very little from offshore drilling.
Because of
government regulations.
But it wasn't Biden. It was way long time ago.
Yeah, after Exxon Valdez.
Right.
And Trump is now unleashing that, and the impact will be enormous.
Yeah, the action eventually finalized would remove restrictions former President Joe Biden unveiled on Earth Day, of course, on Earth Day 2024, blocking development across 13 million acres of federal lands in Alaska. An area Congress specifically set aside for development decades ago. The Biden administration went through the restrictions despite vigorous opposition from Alaska's natives, many of whom were present at the town hall event in, forget that word again, Ukqiavik on Sunday.
Now, half of all the illegal immigration in the United States does not come over the border. It comes from people that were let in legally and have overstayed their visas. Actually, that stat is a little old. I looked it up about 5 years ago. It may be different now, but a very significant number of illegal immigrants came here legally. And JoJo has a message for them.
You know what JoJo has to say. Look at all. Wait, hold on. Look at our boy Luis Rosales. He's unbelievable. He has to go back and forth right now, as we know, obviously, because of this, not to be get in trouble. And he does. He comes here for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Then he's got to go back. Then he's got to have paperwork that says he's working with, so right there, right?
So Jim Banks, a Republican senator from Indiana, proposed a bill to impose harsher penalties on legal immigrants who enter the country on a visa, but then don't quit when they're supposed to. The Boulder incident, the terror episode, and 9/11 hijackers did not sneak in. They came in legally and then overstayed their visa.
Right.
It's just as serious and just as dangerous. Overstaying a visa is not a federal crime, but it would be classified as one if Banks' bill is passed. Terribly important legislation.
Well, that would make people, look at it and say, maybe I'm not going to do this. Let me get back.
Yeah, that's
if
right.
It's a federal crime.
Now, Trump has been under criticism for supposed cuts in the Medicaid bill, in his budget bill. And I rebutted some of them at the start of the show, but let me just continue with that. Medicaid will be strengthened for the American citizens for whom the program was designed. Pregnant women, children, people with disabilities, low-income seniors, and other vulnerable low-income families by removing 1.4 million illegal immigrants from funding the program. And 4.8 million able-bodied adults on Medicare are choosing not to work, and this will kick them off Medicare.
Wow.
Through work, job training, or part-time volunteering, this requirement will strengthen the system to better help those in need of assistance. Work requirements are a bipartisan solution, kicking and screaming, supported by Joe Biden. Now, all of Trump's strengthening of the United States has had a big effect on military recruitment.
You got me, Dick. The Army has exceeded its fiscal 2025 recruiting goal with 4 months to spare, with 61,000 future soldiers signing up, an average per day enlistment of over last year by more than 50%. That's so beautiful. The massive surge in recruiting is a major win for Trump administration, specifically for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who has focused heavily on rolling back woke military policies that he said were hurting recruiting and military readiness and otherwise negatively affecting America's armed forces. One of the steps he's taken in the identification and administration separation of transgender troops from the force. So that's what he's doing. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
this
it's
way,
wonderful
we need that because we were down. I can't believe how low the recruitment was.
Yep, absolutely. one of probably the biggest scandal there is in American politics and government today is the cover-up of Joe Biden's decline. And Trump has ordered an unprecedented investigation into his administration and concerns his predecessor and his aides covered up his cognitive decline. Trump said in recent months it's become increasingly apparent that former President Biden's aides abused the power of presidential signatures through the use of an auto pen to conceal Biden's cognitive decline and assist Article II authority. This conspiracy marks one of the most dangerous and concerning scandals in American history.
Do you think that they could do away with this auto pen because of this?
I think they have to.
I think they have to.
Given clear implications, this is Trump talking, that Biden lacked the capacity to exercise his presidential authority if his advisors secretly used the mechanical signature pen to conceal his incapacity while taking radical executive actions all in his name, would constitute an unconstitutional wielding of the power. The investigation which Pam Bondi is going to lead is to uncover whether certain individuals conspired to deceive the public about Biden's mental state and unconstitutionally exercise the authorities and responsibilities of the president. The council shall also investigate in consultation with the AG the circumstances surrounding Biden's supposed execution of numerous executive orders during his final years in office.
Yeah, right. In other words, somebody could have just came in and said, "Hey, I got a cousin in jail over there. Hey,
Right.
give me the auto pen."
Yep.
What's it, a button on a computer?
I don't know, I've never seen it, but
it's not a stamp anymore.
The investigation shall address the policy documents for which the auto pen was used, including clemency requests, executive orders, presidential memorabilia, or other presidential policy decisions, and 2, who directed that the president's signature be affixed.
Right.
Each earlier covered Kareem Jean-Pierre Catrine's resignation, and I think this has something to do with it. If there was a public cover-up to try to deceive people to say that Biden was able to function, she could well have been part of it.
That's unbelievable. All right, now check this out. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat, is seemingly threatening to unmask immigration and customs enforcement, the ICE agents, many of whom work undercover operations, saying Democrats will expose their identities no matter what it takes. That sounds pretty illegal to me, that he's going to do this, that he wants to do this, to uncover these guys that work for us. During the press conference this week, Jeffries claimed that Democrats would seek out the identities of ICE agents who work to enforce federal immigration law by locating, arresting, and deporting illegal aliens, often violent, convicted criminals. Every single ICE agent who is engaged in this is Jeffries now, every single ICE agent who is engaged in this aggressive overreach and are trying to hide their identity from the American people will be unsuccessful in doing that, Jeffrey says, hiding their identity. This in America, this is not the Soviet Union. We're not behind the Iron Curtain. This is not the 1930s, and every single one of them, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Now, what Jeffries is threatening to do there is a felony. It is illegal to unmask a CIA agent or an ICE agent or a federal agent of any sort who is engaged in law enforcement when his identity is compromised. It could represent a threat to him. And this is blatantly illegal, and Jeffries can go to jail for doing that.
Can there be any consequence for him saying this and stating this?
Well,
no, he's got to actually go forward.
No, well, you could indict him for encouraging people to unmask ICE agents.
Good.
But I don't think they will. He's the minority leader, but it's a shot for him to be damn careful. Now,
doesn't he know enough not to say that? That it's illegal?
Well, it's part of the Democrats moving to the left.
Yeah.
I've said this all along. They are going to move to the left, and that's what you're seeing.
The crazies. Yeah. Okay. Columbia University risks losing accreditation accreditation over anti-Semitism. The Trump administration said Wednesday that Columbia University has fallen short of accreditation standards by violating federal law, raising the stakes in the onslaught against elite universities over their handling of campus anti-Semitism. The Department of Education Office for Civil Rights said that it had notified the Middle States Commission on Higher Education that Columbia, one of its members' institutions, fails to meet the standards for accreditation set by the commission.
Now, accreditation is the capital punishment for universities.
Is it?
Yeah, because they can't function if they're not accredited.
That's their credit score.
Well, it's not just that. It's their eligibility for student loans, Pell Grants, or any other kind of scholarship. So it basically would kill Columbia. It would kill any institution that acted on it.
The department said the commission requires universities to demonstrate that they comply with federal law and regulations. It said a civil rights investigation had found that Columbia acted with deliberate indifference to the harassment of Jewish students after October 7th, the Hamas attack on Israeli civilians. As it was.
At the same time, there's another story that underscores this. Crime has actually dropped under Donald Trump.
Okay, let's go to that. Trump is taking credit for the lowest homicide rate ever recorded in America, and some criminologists say it's tough on crime talk may be the reason violent crime has dropped by double digits. He said increased deportations of illegal immigrants, restoring the federal death penalty, and boosting federal funding for police have restored law and order in America. President Trump is taking credit for the lowest homicide rate ever recorded in America, and some criminologists say it's tough on crime talk may be the reason. Trump met Thursday with members of Fraternal Order of Police, the nation's largest police unit, to declare that his policies were responsible for the crime drop. I don't think anyone has been more for the police than I am, this is Trump. In recent years, far-left radicals have vilified and targeted our nation's police with Marxist prosecutors and soft-on-crime politicians, making it impossible for you to do your job and do them the way you want. Under the Trump administration, those days are over. That's what Trump said to the FOP members at the White House. After years of spiking crime rates, starting with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, crime numbers have reversed across nearly all categories in the past year and a half. Homicide rates are down 21.5% through April from the first 4 months of last year, according to the data of the real-time crime index. Rapes are down 10.7%, and robberies are down 20%. Even motor vehicle theft, which was an epidemic during COVID emergency, is down by a whopping 26 from April of 24. Much of the crime drop is fueled by nearly every major city reporting double-digit decreases in crime. That's a beautiful thing.
Now, we are facing conceivably a gigantic threat from Iran as the negotiations continue. Iran has received a massive aid from China, receiving thousands of tons of ballistic missile fuel. The aluminum perchlorate is expected to reach Iran in coming months and could fuel hundreds of ballistic missiles. Some of the material would be likely sent to militias in the region allied with Iran, including the Houthis in Yemen.
I see Netanyahu going after these guys very soon.
Yeah.
And Trump go, oh, geez, you shouldn't have done that. Okay,
no,
bye-bye.
he won't say that. Trump will have American
troops
missiles
ready to go.
in there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Good. All right, we got to go. We come back soon. Soon enough.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show.
Hello, Dick Morris.
Sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. This one is huge. The Supreme Court just issued a unanimous ruling, which is almost unheard of with this court.
Reverse discrimination just got a lot easier to prove. The U.S. Supreme Court issued a unanimous ruling, I heard that somewhere, Thursday, that reduced the burden of proof that people who are a part of a majority group must provide when they sue for discrimination. Explain, Lucy.
Well, you know, discrimination has always been protecting minorities.
Right.
But under the libs, we've had reverse discrimination, ruling against whites.
Right.
And in particular, in the distribution of federal funds, there have been many programs passed by Congress that are limited by statute to non-whites only.
Sure.
And the liberal conservatives have sued, saying that's reverse discrimination. And the court just held that those suits are legal, and it lowered the burden of proof that people who are part of a majority group must meet.
You know, I listen to Charlie Kirk all the time. It is amazing how he puts that together, exactly what we're talking about. So anyone listening to this, you should check out Charlie Kirk. He's on all kinds of social media platforms. It's amazing.
Now, fentanyl traffic is down.
40%.
Trump's tariffs are working. Trump has succeeded in cutting fentanyl use in the U.S.
From Mexico to the United States had fallen 40% since U.S. President Trump took office. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said this on Friday. Trump has cited fentanyl trafficking as a factor in his decision to put tariffs on Mexico, through many shipments are not affected as they enter the country under trilateral trade agreement. The Reuters Tariff Watch newsletter is your daily guide to this global trade and tariffs. This is so good.
Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox News, the New York Post, and the Wall Street Journal, is now declaring war on J.D. Vance. The barrage on Vance, which seems to be a continuation of the Murdoch property's unsuccessful efforts, thank God, to stop Trump from winning and to stop him from choosing Vance as his running mate.
I wonder why that was.
Has included well more than a dozen hit pieces against Vance in the Wall Street Journal and on the Post and in Fox News. The efforts for Murdoch's properties are drawing the ire of people close to the president and vice president as well, said one source close to Vance, telling Breitbart News that this is quite clearly a globalist plot to undermine the president's agenda on peace and trade. Neocons have been screwing up U.S. foreign policy for decades, and they're furious that they have no foothold in this administration, a source close to Vance told Breitbart News. Trump has ended Houthi terrorist attacks on U.S. ships, freed all living American hostages in Gaza, forced Ukraine and Russia to begin negotiating. They hate success because it's exposed them as massive failures.
So that's why I was just about to ask you what this was about.
A senior GOP political advisor added that this shows the Murdoch properties are out of step with the direction of the Republican Party. It's a shame so much of the old guard media is still pushing forever wars and completely out of touch with the direction of the GOP. Another Republican strategist with close ties to Trump added the people inside the administration and those like it are more than happy to work with other news outlets, since these outlets seem to be running counter to the wishes of the electorate. Trump has been the leader of the Republican Party for almost a decade, and the Murdoch media still isn't on board with its own agenda. They're digging their own graves, and they're going to keep losing access. There are plenty of outlets the White House can talk to, like Breitbart, who reach American voters and actually believe in making America great. So this is obviously a shot in connection with the 2028 race, where Trump can't run again.
And he doesn't like Vance.
Murdoch is working overtime to make sure that Vance is not the candidate.
Now, Vance...
God knows what's at the root of this, but the one thing you know is it's not public policy. It's personal pique by Murdoch.
You know, we don't know anything about Vance yet. You know, he seems great. I like him. we'll see as it goes whether he gets along with Trump or not, whether he even runs. But I definitely see somebody like Marco or Pam Bondi running. That would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Marco being Cuban, so that's great for the Latino
Well,
vote.
as we near that, we should begin talking about it more. But everybody has a big decision to make. Individuals, every listener to the show. In 28, are you going to support Marco Rubio or Pam Bondi or J.D. Vance? It's going to be a crucial decision.
Or AOC.
No.
I'm
Come on.
kidding.
On our side of the fence.
No, who's going to support her?
Yep. A big battle is brewing over government impoundment. Under Nixon, the president decided that he had the authority not to spend money that Congress appropriated. And Congress objected to that, and they passed the Impoundment Control Act of 1974.
Explain.
Well, the Democrats back in the Watergate era wanted to curb Nixon's ability to cut programs, to cut spending. And Nixon said, if I don't want to spend the money, I'm not going to do it. I'm the head of the executive branch. You just make appropriations. I make the spending. And Congress disagreed with that and passed a law prohibiting that, saying that when we appropriate money, we expect it to be spent. And now that's becoming a big controversy. In a letter to the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, the General Counsel of the Budget Bureau characterized the report on funding of electric vehicles charging stations under the $5 billion cash vacuum that the 21 National Energy Vehicle Infrastructure Program as wrong and legally indefensible. The contract centers around an inauguration... Controversy centers around an Inauguration Day memo signed by Trump halting the Biden-Buttigieg plan to build a network of electric charging vehicle stations and to go along with their efforts to restrict ownership and usage of gasoline cars. In 3 years, the Biden administration managed to parlay the $7.8 billion into only 8 charging stations.
Oh, but they must be beautiful stations. Yeah. You probably can get coffee and cigarettes.
But now the Supreme Court will have to rule on the legality of the Impoundment Control Act. This was enacted by a hostile Democratic Congress against the efforts of Nixon to stop spending on stupid stuff. Previous to the Impoundment Control Act, presidents treated congressional appropriations as ceiling that could not be exceeded rather than a mandatory number to be achieved. This is important to the whole DOJ thing and to the cutting of spending under Trump. And if the Impoundment Act is ruled unconstitutional, as I think it is, and I think it will be, that vastly increases the power of the president over wasteful spending.
Yeah, well, the $7.5 billion for 8 charging stations is a good argument.
Yeah.
That's going to play well.
Now, as we're approaching the idea of the war between Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine has released secret documents that they say show that Russia is planning to annex all of Ukraine.
So these plans revealed this week by Ukrainian intelligence services indicate Russia intends to extend the war well into 26 and take over vast territories that run well beyond its public demands for a formal ceasefire.
Lux, come on in with the song.
Yeah. What do you got, Lux? So, Ukrainian president...
I got my eyes on you, Lux.
You're looking at Lux?
Yeah. I had assumed that the battlefield stalemate in Ukraine would lead to a ceasefire Trump might broker about everybody holds on to the land they now control, giving Russia about 20% of Ukraine.
And this guy, Colonel Pavlo Palisa, said that Putin intends to take over Ukraine's how do you say it?
Donbass.
No, that's not Donbass. Donetsk and Lugansk. Very hard words.
Luhansk.
By September 1st and build a buffer zone at the northern Ukrainian-Russian border by close of 25. The Russians, have plans even for 26 The plan for next year is to occupy the whole part of Ukraine, which is situated on the left bank of Dnipro River, he said. Palisa added that Putin eventually plans to take over all of Ukraine on the eastern side of Dnipro River and capture the regions of Odessa and Mykolaiv by the end of 2026, thereby eliminating Ukraine's access to the Black Sea. Unfortunately, they're not speaking about peace. They're preparing for war, he said. Institute for the Study of War said on Friday, detailing Putin's plans for expansion of nearly 85,000 square miles of Ukraine, with a goal of holding 129,000 square miles by the end of 26, or almost half the country. So this is key information. It means that the Russians are not going to settle for part. They want all of Ukraine, and they want all of Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and Poland. Probably the whole world, right?
The whole world, and if we keep letting them invade and take territory, they're going to get it. And it's very important that we bear this in mind and understand that we can't go on depending on the Ukrainian army to make the world a safe place.
When we come back.
Yeah, when we come back, we're going to be talking about the crazy efforts of the Democrat moderates to stay alive.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. There's a new endangered species in the environment. They're called moderate Democrats. and they are endangered by the incredible leftward Marxist communist
Are they going to join the bearded worm and long-eared
spotted owl and all
bat?
that?
Right.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And
the smell.
Rahm Emanuel, the former guy who worked with Clinton, with whom I worked closely, former mayor of Chicago, is leading this charge and saying that the Democrats are woke and can't win. And boy, is he right. The Democratic focus on crazy social policies, transgender and girls competing in men's sports, and all of that stuff is absolutely lethal for them. And their advocacy of electric vehicles, they're just absolutely destroying themselves. And finally, some conservative and moderate Democrats are speaking out about that.
Yeah, don't tell me what to do with my life.
Yeah. Now, the FBI is pursuing its investigation of Fauci. Kash Patel revealed Friday that the FBI has located communications devices belonging to Dr. Anthony Fauci, during the medical advisor during the COVID epidemic. Speaking on an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Patel confirmed that multiple investigations into Fauci-related matters are currently active across 3 FBI field offices.
Good for him.
Patel credited Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, for assisting in the search and pushing for transparency over several years. We just had a great breakthrough this week on Fauci, Patel said. They had always been looking for Fauci's original phones and devices that he used while he was back in Trump days during COVID, and nobody's found them until 2 days ago. Wow. Patel explained that while it's still too early to determine the contents of the recovered devices, their discovery represents progress in the ongoing investigations. Now look, your audience and everybody listening shouldn't jump to the conclusion. Everything is in there. We'll look at it. We'll pull it. We'll rip it apart, as they say, and maybe it's deleted, and maybe it's not, but at least we found it. This is Patel talking. At least now we can tell the American people that we've been looking, because it is of public importance to figure out, did this guy lie? Did he intentionally mislead the world and cause countless deaths? Patel emphasized that the work is not complete and that the FBI is continuing its investigations. I think it's a victory for the American people that we broke with Congress is that when we did find it, we're not done, we're still looking, and we're holding on the case, he concluded. Senator Paul and other lawmakers have long sought documents from the National Institutes of Health, NIH, related to Fauci's involvement in funding gain-of-function research, specifically in connection to the Wuhan lab of virology in China. During prior congressional testimony, Fauci denied that the NIH funded such research, a statement that has since been called into question by new evidence and whistleblower claims. In 24, documents subpoenaed by a Congressional Oversight Committee revealed that Fauci's senior advisors attempted to delete emails related to the Wuhan Institute and its U.S. research partner. Some of the communications reportedly contained strategic misspellings designed to avoid detection under the FOI searches. Investigators interpreted the efforts as attempts to conceal critical records from public review and evade federal transparency requirements. The latest developments come amid increased scrutiny of the federal government's handling of pandemic-related information and growing concerns about the origin of COVID-19.
It smells a little bit right there,
It sure
Dick
does.
Morris.
So you have two investigations going on that really are very important and could be transformative. One is they're closing in on Fauci to see if the United States funded gain-of-function research and whether Fauci lied about it. I think they'll find that he did. I think they'll find that we did fund that and that we are largely responsible for our own million deaths in the COVID epidemic.
And they're going to fine him with jail.
And he'll go to prison because he testified wrongly to Congress. The point here is that back then, the virologists and the scientists were all saying we need to develop gain-of-function research because we need to have it to be able to figure out how to counter it.
Right, the serum.
We need to develop an antibody, an antidote.
We need the serum.
But they have lied about that, and they may have been well-intentioned, but they killed 6 million people.
Wasn't Biden trying to reinstate that gain-of-function at one point? A couple of years
Yes,
ago?
I think he was.
So.
I think he
Horrible.
was. Well, he was doing whatever his advisors told him to do.
Yeah, right. He wasn't doing
Total
anything. You're
puppet.
right.
And the other investigation was Biden's inability and incapacity covered up by the administration. Did they pretend that this guy was compos mentis, was able to function, and was acting as president when, in fact, the autopen was doing all the work?
That I want to know all about.
So
we got to find out.
these are two developments that are earth-shaking. So in a sense, to summarize today's show, the stuff that's immediately on the front burner is all coming to a resolution. We're going to pass the balanced budget bill, the big, beautiful bill. We're going to enact
the
tax
big
cuts.
badass bill.
We're going to enact the tax cuts. We're going to have economic growth, and we're probably going to win the 26 elections. The new issues that are coming up is the Democratic cover-up of Biden's illness and dementia, and Fauci's cover-up of his own conduct in potentially creating and unleashing the gain-of-function virus that killed 6 million people.
And I also want to see what happens to Jeffries.
Yeah.
What he's doing with trying to
cover-up.
unveil some of these agents, the ICE agents.
He's going to talk himself into a jail sentence.
Yeah, good for him. Well, it's been an honor to be here
This
with
has
you.
been
Mr.
what a
Moore.
great show.
What a great show.
My God.
And where's bye-bye? We got bye-bye, the girl.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?